Just like last time, I asked you guys for what character you wanted to see next. And there was a lot of comments last time, but one that people certainly wanted to see is Ice Climbers. They're quite the infamous duo, those two. Utilizing chain grabs, they were able to close out stocks only needing a single grab. First discovered back in Melee, it was given the name Wobbling. And by some miracle, it was actually retained in Brawl. Though Brawl was honestly just a massive regrab fest anyway, so I'm not surprised. But by the time Smash 4 rolled around, Sakurai had had enough and suddenly Ice Climbers were not in the game anymore, citing 3DS hardware limitations as the reason, obviously. But seeing how everyone is here, Ice Climbers are let back into the warmth. But are their wobbling days truly over? Why don't we take a look at just that? As usual, Smash Ultimate is not finished yet, and all information in this video might not be applicable to the final version of the game, as well as the fact that I did not get to play this game myself and all information is therefore based on observation. Just like with Snake, Ice Climbers were absent from Smash 4, so for comparison I'll be looking at the Brawl interpretation. And again, I have to make note of how Brawl is a very different game from Smash 4, and therefore I'm going to be a little bit more loose in the comparison. Anyways, back in the Brawl days, Ice Climbers were undoubtedly top tier. Being the king and queen of chain grabs in a game where chain grabbing was predominant is a very telling of their strength. They did this through desyncing. Roughly speaking, this made you able to have the Ice Climbers do different moves individually of each other. Not only was this useful in neutral, but it also led to the insanely powerful Ice Climbers chain grab, more colloquially known as wobbling. This led to them having one of the strongest punish games in all of Brawl. Having the threat of losing a stock for just a single mistake is something not a lot of characters can say they have. While their neutral was not amazing, it was certainly serviceable, and they basically had all the tools they needed. Though being two different characters in one does have its downsides. If you could separate them and get rid of Nana, Popo alone was not exactly great. This greatly limits his recovery and overall neutral options, though this was only if you could separate them, which again risks you getting sent to an early grave. But enough about Brawl, let's look at Smash Ultimate. This time around they seem to work mostly the same, but now we can almost certainly say that wobbling is gone. I'm saying almost because we don't quite know yet. Wobbling has always had less than intuitive ways of execution. We might just not know it yet, though I do find this to be very unlikely. It looks like they did their best to make sure wobbling is truly gone. But there is one thing that still consists: desyncing. From this and some other clips, we can see that desyncing clearly is still very much in the game. Desyncing has always been a very deep and intricate subject, so obviously I can't explain in any deep detail, since we barely know how it works in this game. And from what I can tell, the desyncs seem to kind of happen randomly. Desyncing still existing can mean a plethora of different things, but since information is so limited at the moment, I'm going to be waiting until we get more information before I say anything definite. Though there is this clip which looks, concerning. Looks like we might have another pre-patch Rosalina on our hands. Wouldn't that be fun? So anyways, enough about exploiting the game mechanics. Let's look at their actual moves. Since we're on the subject of grabs, why don't we start there? In Ultimate, Nana will now be unable to move during a throw. This is what I meant by them trying to prevent chain grabbing. Seeing how wobbling is probably gone now, they will just have to do with actual throw combos. I know, what a tragedy. At low percentages, it seems to be able to combo into tilts. And at higher percentages, you can combo into aerials, it seems. Whether or not it works as a kill confirm is however a little indecisive. But it seems like the new Ice Climbers at least has somewhat of their grappler past intact. Aside from down throw, their other throws don't really seem to have anything special going on, and they're just there for situational stage control. Onto their special moves. Their up B, the belay, which I just found out is actually a word, is a pretty interesting move. It launches both Ice Climbers upwards. When used for recovering, you can escape the deepest depths of the blast zone, though this will come at the cost of Nana, as she will not travel as far as Popo, and will fall and get KO'd. Though you don't have to sacrifice Nana every time. If Nana can reach the ledge, she'll drag Popo up afterwards, and both will make it back. Without Nana, this move is utter garbage, and barely lifts you any distance at all. You can still get this version of the move if Nana is too far away from you, though she doesn't have to be right next to you to get the good version. If she is close, she'll warp to you and you can get the good version. This move used to have a hitbox around Nana's head, which it probably still does, but I couldn't exactly find any footage of it, though I don't see why they would remove it, but take it with a grain of salt, I suppose. Their side B seems to work very similarly. It serves as a decent horizontal recovery option, and is basically the only one Popo has when he is alone. It's decent for escaping juggling situations, if there are platforms to land on. It doesn't have a lot of lag, but enough to be punished on shield. You can mash to increase its height and distance, similar to Luigi's Cyclone. Aside from that, it's a pretty decent burst option that can catch your opponent off guard. Though there is this clip showing off desyncing side B, which looks kinda stupid. So yeah, desyncing looks like it's alive and kicking. Down B looks almost identical, and that's a good thing. It's a fairly decent spacing tool. And what's this? It already has a desyncs, you say? Well, I would say I'm surprised, but I'm not. In Brawl, when Ice Climbers were on the ground, they would shoot blizzards in opposite directions. In Ultimate, however, they have a concentrated beam in front of them. When up close, this move actually has freezing properties while dealing damage, but at a range it only deals damage and minor hit stun. Neutral B looks like a pretty good move. It simply shoots 2 icebergs that slide along the ground. For pressuring, it looks pretty decent. Seeing how projectiles might be better now because of the new perfect shielding mechanic, it could actually be pretty great. It can also freeze at really high percentages, though how high I do not know. Onto their neutral moves, which all look very similar. It's really hard to tell the difference between them, honestly. Jab consists of 2 quick hammer swipes in front of Ice Climbers. It looks like a fairly decent move to deal with people who get too close. F-tilt is very similar, except that it's a single hit. They look and feel very similar. Down tilt is also a hammer swipe, except this one covers the ground. The hitbox seems to swipe them away at a very sharp angle, so it could possibly be very useful close to the ledge. Who knows, honestly, this is the only footage I can find of it. Up tilt, however, is very distinct. It's a multi-hit with a finishing hitbox that launches the opponent upwards, which puts them in a really nasty position right above Ice Climbers. It's probably going to be a pretty decent coverage tool since it has so many active hitboxes. With both the Ice Climbers having their own set of hitboxes, it looks good. Dash attack looks like a decent zone breaking tool. It launches them straight upwards just like up tilt. It's certainly not safe on shield, but might land you some good stage control if you can pull it off. Moving on to their aerials. Their up air is a fairly fast upwards hammer swipe, and as I mentioned before, it might be able to be comboed into from a down throw. Their neutral air is a quick hammer twirl that covers both sides of Ice Climbers. It has very little lag, so you can likely get some setups after it should you land it close to the ground. Aside from that, it's great for spacing and landing in general. Forward air is very interesting. Nana's hit can actually spike, and my, what a spike that is. The angles is absolutely brutal for a spike. The number of characters that can survive this spike is not going to be high. I can tell you that for a fact. But aside from that, the forward air is a fairly slow move, and has a decent amount of lag, probably making it unsafe in neutral. Down air is basically a slow version of Zero Suit's down air. It launches you towards the ground. Moves like this usually only have one purpose, and that is for landing. With Ice Climbers being as floaty as they are, this could really come in handy. Back air is also very standard, being a hammer swing behind Ice Climbers. It seems to have quite a lot of power like most back airs do, and it doesn't seem to have terribly much lag either. Then there are their smash attacks, which are not too notable, honestly. They're all very standard, all things considered. F-smash has them bashing their hammers into the ground. If you can land both hits, it seems to deal a lot of damage and knockback, but aside from that, it's a pretty standard F-smash. Up smash is a standard hammer swing that covers at an arc over Ice Climber's head. It hits opponents right in front of you, so it's certainly good for scooping opponents off the ground, should you be able to get an air dodge read or something. Down smash is just as normal, being a low floor swipe with her hammers covering both sides. Since down B no longer covered both sides, maybe it will be more useful. So that's all the moves, but before I leave I want to talk about Nana herself, and a little bit about how she works. When separated, Nana will do her best to reunite with Popo. She will not attack and will only rush for the fastest possible route to Popo. Though that's not to say that her AI can't do some really weird things. Like in this clip where Nana randomly goes for a ledge jump. That certainly amused me when I saw it first time. Aside from that, Nana will share the same health as Popo, though Nana herself can get hit, and Popo will not take damage. Though she will still retain this damage even if they are reunited, meaning that sometimes she will not survive hits that Popo will. But that's about it. As always, if there is a character from this screen you want me to cover in a future video, leave a comment about it in the comment section below. Though make sure that they are on this screen, because if not, there's just not enough footage for me to cover it, you know. Ice Climbers have always been a very strange pair, but can they live up to their former glory without their main strength? Only time will tell, and until then, thank you so much for watching. It's a multi-hit with a finishing hitbox that launches the opponent upwards, which pushes them in a really nasty position right above Ass Climbers. Ass Climbers. Good.